Hey, welcome guys. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to send emails from your React applications using email.js. So email.js is a service that lets you send emails easily. So we're going to use this service to send emails from our React applications. So let me just show you the demo of the application. So this is how it looks like. You can enter our name. So you can think of this as a contact form. Maybe on your website you have a contact form, you have maybe request a callback, anything you'd like to do in your React application to send emails, you can use that service. So also you can, let's just write a random Gmail. And also you can see there is validation. You can see like below here we have the subject must be at least 3 characters. All these we are going to add. So this is my subject. So and then you can submit without finishing the validations or like filling all the forms. So the message will be, this is my message. Then if you click send, you see the loading screen, and then on top here you can see a success message which says the inquiry has been submitted successfully. So after sending that, I have hooked it up with my email address, my Gmail. So we should expect to get an email from email.js, which is from our application. So and that's it. So if you click here, you can see whatever we added. So hello admin, you got a new message from the name, the email, and then the message itself. And then on below here, you can see we have the watermarked for email sent via email.js. Also, you can remove this watermark if you upgrade your service. So this is email.js. So this is email.js, and let me just log in. So if you are going to follow along, you need to create an account, whereby you'll get into a dashboard like this, and then you can see the request reft, and then you have options to increase limits. So this is their pricing, but their free version is quite generous because it gives you 200 emails to send per month. So the first thing you are going to do is to clone the repository. So here is the repository which contains the source code for this project. We have 3 branches. The first branch is the initial branch. The second branch is called setting up React hook form and validation. So React hook form is what we are using to collect our data, and then we are using a package called Zod. So Zod. So we are using a package called Zod to validate whether this is you can see the validations. You can validate a string, a maximum. So these validations will show up here. So these are the validations from Zod, which are hooked into React hook form. And then we have a resolver. So the resolver, you can think as a resolver as what is resolving exactly what Zod wants. So if Zod wants a string that is 5 characters, so we use these resolvers to resolve the validations into our React hook form. I'll show you how that works. So here is React hook form. It basically helps us to get data into from our forms without having to use multiple use states. Okay, so the first step will be to clone the repository, and specifically cloning the initial branch because it is what has the basic code that we need to run. So it will have the form without the validation. Okay, so copy this code, git clone. So you can copy these, and then, so let me make this one bigger so I can cd into code. Okay. Then cd into that folder, and then open VS Code from that folder. So the next step will be cloning the repository. So just clone the repository, git clone single branch. So if you want to clone a single branch, just specify this single branch, and then you have to use the -b flag to specify which branch you want to clone. So if you do that, so a repository has been cloned, so we can cd into that, or even without cding, we can just open it in the VS Codes for easier managing. So now the next step, will be to install the dependencies. I'm using pnpm. You can see I have a pnpm.log.yml. So you can use yarn, you can use npm, but in my case I'm going to use pnpm, but you can use your favorite tool that you like. So we can do pnpm install to install our dependencies. So the beauty about pnpm is that it's very fast, because if it had previously requested for a package, it's not going to ask for it again. It will just use the cache from the, yeah. So you can just open this one. You can do it using pnpm dev, which will start a development server. So I can just close this one, Then if I come here, localhost port 5173, you see what we have. So currently we don't have validations. Even you can see the validations, the emails, everything is not working. And the first step we are going to do is to hook this one up with React hook form, so that we can first get the data from our form, because that's the very much initial step. So to do that, we'll go back to our code. So I can just walk you through the code very fast. So this is a React application created using Vite. So we have the background. This is the background you saw. So that background behind the contact form, it's from Pixabay, and this is the author of that. So we also have a source. We just not go through. The most important thing here is the source folder. We have the main entry point, which is main.tsx. And then from the main.tsx, we render our application. So this is our application. You can see the background image, then the contact form, and then we have this attribution to the owner of that image. And then, or something else I forgot to note, this is using Chakra UI for styling. So this one is using Chakra UI. Yeah, it's using this component library for styling, but since we are not going to style in this tutorial, our main focus is to how to link our React application to Image.js. We're just going to skip over it, but you can go through the documentation and see how you can use Chakra UI in React applications. So we have our contact form, which is in the components. This is a contact form. You can see the heading, the inputs. This one is the input for name, which corresponds to this input here, full name. So you can see the label is the full name. Okay, I think I can do them side by side. Okay, I think we can do it like this. So let me make this one a little bit smaller, because we just care about the form. So you can see, let me just change something here so that you can see the full name here. So you can see this is how we use labels in Chakra, but we're not going to focus on that. So our main focus right now is to get, so also I can just leave it like that, or maybe let's just use a box shadow. So the reason I'm doing this is because later when we add validations, our inputs will be styled different based on the validation, because now here we have a border. We don't need the border anymore to interfere with the colors of the inputs. So the first thing we need, first foremost, is to check on our package.json to see whether we have React hook form, and if we don't, we can just install it like this. So npm install react-hook-form. The next package we need is the one I told you, the resolver for Zod, which is at hook form /resolvers. And then the final one we need is Zod. So Zod is for validation, and I'll show you how easy it is to use Zod. So we have that in place. We have Zod, React hook form, and the hook form resolver. So the next step we need is to create our schema. So what I normally do is to create a folder. I can maybe create it inside source. Yeah, I can create it inside source. So I can create a folder called schema. Spelled it wrong, but we can just change schema. Then inside we can create a file like index.ts. So then the first thing we need to create here is the is our schema for our contactors. Okay, let's create the schema for our contactors. So to create a schema, it's as simple as just, so we need to export these because it will be used by other files. So export const contact schema, which will be equals to z from Zod. So I have auto import. So if you can see, the import is imported, z.object, and then we can start specifying the fields we want. So these are the fields that we need to validate in our files. So the first field we need to verify is the full name. So we can give it a name. So we can call it full name, which will be z.string. You don't need to do all these, but it's great to know how to use Zod. And then we can say we want a minimum of 3 characters for the string of full name. And then we can say full name must be at least 2 characters. Then we can go next to which field do we have here. So we have the email. We can go next to the email field, which will be equals to z.string dot email. So this one will, there is a helper function for the email, which will help us to validate. So if I go back to Zod, okay. So if we go, we can see we have string date times. I don't know whether they have a search. Can just check. But you guys can go through the documentation for Zod. You can see it can validate dates. So you can see how it validates date. You can say z.string.date. So we have an helper one for the emails. String dot here it is. So we have a validator inbuilt by Zod for validating emails. So we can use that. Then next is for the subject. So let me go back. So for the subject, we can do a z.string. This one is a string. Then you can give it a minimum of 3 characters. You can say subject must be at least 3 characters. Then the final one is the message. You can say z.string dot minimum of 5. And then we can say at least 5 characters required. So you can go as far as you want for the validators. You can nest validators. We can say our email must have a minimum of these. We can do more stuff. We can check different stuffs, but in our case, for simplicity, let's just use that. The next one we need is the form data. So we need a type for our schema, and I'll just call it. So we need a type for our schema to give to Zod so that Zod can know, so that our inputs can be typed. So this is basically for TypeScript, but it's really useful. So you can create a type of contact form data. You can call it whatever you want, which is will be an infer of type of contact schema. So this one will give us a type. You can see the type. So full name string, email string, subject string, message string. But you can go ahead and instead of inferring from that schema, you can go ahead and create that type, but that's redundant. We don't need to do that. So the next thing we need to do is to go to our form. We need to go to our form and start building our form to match whatever you want. So the first thing we need to do is to start hooking this up with React hook form. So the first thing we need to do is we need to import one of the helper functions, one of the hooks from React hook form called use form. Let me just from React dash hook dash form, and then we can get a hook called use form. So if you go back to React hook form, I don't know where React hook form is. Okay, here is React hook form. You can see we have a hook from React hook form that we can use. And then from the hook, we can get some of the helper methods we can use in our forms. So we call the use form, and then the use form takes in an object which has some of the properties we want. You remember I said about a resolver. So we can use the resolver we had, which is, can you just import it? So it's called Zod resolver. You can see it's automatically getting imported. So you can do a Zod resolver and then give it our schema. Okay, so we give our resolver the schema. So it's basically taking this schema and then validating against it. So it's basically taking in the full name and then validating it based on what we provided here using Zod. And then there's another method I like to use called the mode. This is the mode of when the validation should occur. So in my case, I like using on change. So anytime something changes, let's do a validation. But you can do also on blur. On blur is when someone gets out of the input, but we can just, either of them is okay. And then from the use form, you get some of helper methods like the register, the handle submit. We have a reset, but I don't know whether you need it. So the reset is for resetting the fields. And then we have another one called the form state. So this one can give us the real-time errors so that we can display to the UI. So we can grab the errors from here. And then to begin hooking up our form with React hook form, in Chakra UI, so basically you need a form to start validating against it. But in Chakra UI, we don't need to do that, but we can transform a component into another element from the HTML we want to. So like this one is a stack. So let me just quickly show you what a stack is. So a stack is used to lay out its children in a vertical or a horizontal stack. So by default, a stack applies flex direction column and a gap of 8 to the children. So, but using Chakra, we can transform a stack instead of rendering a div under the hood to render a form. Okay. So I think this is our final version. Just close it. So you can say as form, and then after saying as form, we can get the method from the form element called the onSubmit. So we can call the onSubmit, pass it a function, and this function is from React hook form. So whenever this form is submitted, we call the handle submit function from React hook form and then pass it a function that will be called with the data. So let me just show you. I'll just create a function called on submit. So you can say const on submit like that. And then this on submit will receive some data. We can annotate the data using the type. So the data is the type of our data. So we need to type this one, and we already did that by doing this. So we inferred the type from whatever Zod had done. So we can basically come, this one will receive the data as contact form data. It's automatically imported, and then we can console log the data. So this one is on submit. This one is on submit. So we have another issue. We didn't type our form. So when you hover over these, you can see we can pass a generic type. The first one being the, I don't know whether you can see. So the use form, you can pass in the field values. So you can type the field values for React hook form to know what type of data is it dealing with. And then the value is still our type. So if we hover over these, we can see the use form. Let me remove it and so that you can see. So currently the use form doesn't know the type of our data. We have a resolver, yes, but the hook form doesn't know what type of data is it dealing with. So you can see the first one is the field values. Currently it doesn't know which field values it is dealing with, what type are they. But if we come here and annotate our form, then hover over the use form, you can see now the use form knows that it has a full name, it has an email, a subject, and a message. So if we type that, everything comes into sync because the header submit passes in the data. So now even the header submit knows what type of data it is dealing with. And then we pass it a function that will be called. So where am I getting all these? You can see. So basically the same thing. So we call the header submit and then pass it a function that will be called with our data as the first argument. Okay. Yeah. So if you guys would like a tutorial on React hook form, make sure to comment down on this comment sections, then we can get back to that. So the next step is to hook up the fields, the actual form fields, with the React hook form. So the first thing we'll do, we'll start with our full name. We have a full name. The other thing we need to do is to label it as required. That will add an asterisk, this one red on top here, and then we can add what should we do when it is invalid. So how will it know whether it's invalid? So in Chakra we have this invalid prop, which is a boolean. So since our errors is an object, we can convert. Let me just show you. You can see now this one is typed, so it knows which error we are dealing with. So let me just finish and just explain. So then we can have the error text will be our errors dot full name dot message. Okay, now this one it looks nice. Then we can add a helper text. So why do we need a helper text? Let me just. So if you don't have the helper text, you'll have that layout shift whereby an error shows and then the error goes. So to prevent that layout, we always provide a helper text, and then we can see if there are no errors, dot full name, then show, and maybe this helper. Okay. Now you can see we have the helper text below here. Now if I start typing, So not, or something is not hooked up, but let's just finish. So let's register. Then we need to, you saw this function called register. This one is used for registering the fields, the form inputs. So you can come here inside the inputs and then register these inputs. So you just do register and then register the full name. Just that. So if you come and start typing, now it's not showing. I think we have an error. This one is typed through a form. So let me refresh this. It's not showing. So let me just check what the issue would be. So you have not errors dot. Okay. I think I know where the issue came from. The issue came from, we said we want to get validation when we blur, but let's just use the on change. So as someone types can see an error. So you can see the error is below there, and if I start writing the full name, maybe TechWithTwin, still using the on blur, let me reload. So let me say, so we get the validation tech, then the validation goes. So you can see validation goes. As soon as, I don't know whether the time is gone. I don't want these to be so long. So I'd have shown you something cool, but let's just continue. So why did we need the helper text? So here is where let me just show you why we need the helper text. So if I remove the helper text, so you can see we have the error, and then the error goes, then the layout shifts. You can see that shifting. But if you have the helper text, the layout doesn't shift. So that's why we needed the helper text. So we have to do all that for the other fields. So I'll just do it real quick. So you can do, this one is required. You can say invalid. It will be invalid if there is error.email. Then you can do the error text, which will be errors.email.message. So this one optional says there might not be, or there might be. Then you can add the helper text, which will be errors.email, and then you can say enter your email. So this one says if there are no errors, then show the helper text. Okay, if there is errors, don't show, so that we don't have both the helper text and the errors at the same time. And then finally we can come here and register our input. We register it as an email. You can see now the great thing about using TypeScript is that everything is hooked up. Let me just continue the subject as we did. So we have it required the subject, then is it invalid? It will be invalid if there is errors dot subject, and then error text will be the errors dot subject dot message. So this one will come from Zod and from the resolver. Then we can add our helper text, which will be subject then of your inquiry. So let's continue, then register our input. So we can do register the, you can see how TypeScript gives us highlighting so that we don't make mistakes. And then finally we can register our message. So our message is required. So our message is required. Is it invalid? It will be invalid if there is an error for this one is a message. And then error text, which text will we show? We will show the text errors dot message dot, okay, yeah, it will be message. Then we can add our favorite helper text. So the helper text will be, if you don't have errors, that message, then show the helper text, enter your message in detail. Okay. Finally, let's hook up the message. You can register the message. Finally, we need to give this one the type of submit, so that the button can submit. So this one should register the message. I don't know what happened. I don't know whether it did. I thought I wrote that, but let's just continue. So everything is hooked up, and at least this one should fire. You can see our data. So I'll just add my data here. This is my subject. Validation is working. And then we can open these. So our form still is responsive even at that screen. That's really nice. Then if we submit, we get our data. So we get the full name is this, the email is this, the message is this. I hope everyone can see the message, the subject, and everything. So up until to that point, we have the data from the form inside our function. You can see. Then we have our reset function, which can now reset the fields to remove everything. Let me just show you. So if you say here, whenever someone submits, reset the form. And if I come here and submit, the form is reset. But this one will call it as soon as we start working on our email.js logic. So the next step we need to do is to get some of the data we need from email.js. So I don't know whether I'll just remove my services. Let me just remove them so that we can start from a ground. Then we can do it. I'll also remove the template so that we can all be from the same. Okay. So the first thing we need is a service. So this is a service that will be used to send the email. So in my case, I'm going to use Gmail. So if you have an Outlook, you can link it to the Outlook, and then this will be. But if you are using Outlook, you can maybe use an mailer. But since if you have just agreed you want to use email.js, we can just test using the Gmail. So I'll just link it to the Gmail. It will create as Gmail or a service ID. Then I can connect, and then let me just connect so that everyone can be okay. This one has access. Just continue until the end. Connected, then create the service. So I want us to start from the same. Then the next thing you need is a template. So the template is what shows how your email will look like. So we have a service to send the email, then we have the template. So you can create a new template, and then in the template, what do you want? You know, from ours we have the full name. So this is the message that will come from there. So let me just show you. So this is the subject, this is the message we have. So what do you want us to look like? So we can say new message. I want mine to be new message. We can do it just a new message, or maybe you can even add an emoji, or maybe this one, new message. Then the subject, we want to add the subject. So use double curly brackets here to add the subject, and then let's just add the subject, and then inside here we can say hello. We want to use an admin. Okay, so you need to start. Oh, if this one is not editable, you need to click the edit content. Then we can come here. Since it's sending to me, I can just say hello admin. You have got a new message from. Then you remember ours, we called it full. Let me just add full name. So you got a new message from full name with email. you remember we have an email field. So whatever you had here, you can pass it from the front end. So email, and then we can embed the message. So we have the subject, the full name, the email, and the message. And then we can say here whatever you want. So you want this one to be from best wishes from, let me just add my company name. So then you can apply the changes in the bottom. So we have everything hooked up. Then to email, I wanted to just come to my email address. From name, let's just leave that as is. All these things we can do, then we can save. So the template has been saved. So if you come here, we have a template. The next thing we need to do is to go to the personal settings, no, the account, go to the security, and make sure these ones are checked, not checked, because I had an issue trying to use them. So uncheck this one, then we can continue to the docs of email.js. So what we are going to use, I'm not going to use an SDK, I'm just going to call the REST API. So you can try this, but this one will just add bloat to our project. I don't want to do this because I can just make a request with my required data to email.js, and then I don't need to install something from email.js. You can also see we have a custom form which has validations, and then if we start, I think it should work, but I don't want to add bloat to this because you can see now this one you need to install email.js browser. Then you pass in the options, do what, we initialize. I don't want to do all this. They have a REST API. So in our case, we are just going to focus on the REST API, whereby the REST API just accepts some type of data. Let's just read through. So this one sends an email on the specified email template and the past dynamic parameters. The email is sent via the specified email service or via the default service if default service is keyword is passed. Then we have the resource URL. You can see, just make a post request with the required data to this endpoint, and then everything will be hooked up. So I think this is a good way to use email.js without having to add bloat to the project. So we have a rate limit, and then our key main area to focus on is the parameters that we are going to pass. So we are going to pass the service ID, template ID, user ID, template params. These are the parameters that we need in our template. So if I go to my template, we have a subject, we have a full name, we have an email, we have a message. Subject, full name, email. So subject, full name, email, and message. So those are 4 fields, 1, 2, 3, 4, that we are going to pass to our template. So these are the template params. The access token is not required. Then you can see a sample here, but let me just show you how we do it. So I hope everyone is at this step so that we can continue with our project. So what I need to do next is to create, I don't want to write my logic for sending emails here inside the component. So I'm thinking of inside the source, we can go inside the source, can collapse everything, can create a new folder called utils, and then inside we can create functions. So this one will hold all our functions. Maybe we have other functions that maybe send an SMS, all that. We can do all that, and then let's start writing our logic. So I'll export a function called send email, or maybe send mail, which will be asynchronous. And then I need to do something here. So I need to know what this send email returns. So I can create a type called, so export type send mail response, which will be equals to, I want a status which will be Boolean, and then this one will be used for our toasters. So the toast notifications, then we can have a message which will be a string. You can do as much as you want, and then since this one is return a promise, so this one is an asynchronous function which should return a promise. And the promise is of type send email response. And then inside the response, what do we want to do? First, we need our data. The data we are going to send to email.js. So these are the parameters for the data. So the first thing, and also we can grab data of type contact form data. So this is the data we will pass to the send mail. So we will pass the data, which is our contact form data, to our send mail function for it to do all the work to construct the data. So the first thing I need to create is a data also. And also I can destructure. If you know what destructuring is, you can grab the individual items from the contact form data instead of initializing them. And so you can do this. So you can do a message. And then inside our data, we start structuring our data. So we can have a service ID. So I'm just reading from here, service ID. And then we need to know what is our service ID. So the service ID of the service through which the email will be sent. So we go back to email.js, the services, we grab our service ID. This one is the service ID. Okay, just grab it from there. So this is our service ID. The next thing we need to add is to go back here and then see the template ID. So we go back to email.js, go to templates, grab the template ID. Okay, this one is running away. I don't know. Template ID, email templates. Okay, so this one has an issue. So I was able to grab it. So can go back and add our service, the template ID. Go back to the documentation. What else do we need? The user ID. So the user ID is the public key of the account. So you come here and say user underscore ID, which will be equals to public key of the account. Where is the public key defined? It's in the account. Then this one is our public key. So that's our public key. Go back to the documentation. What else do we need? We need the template params. So template underscore params, which will be equals to, so what are the templates params we need to pass? So let me go back. So the template params corresponds to whatever you are using in our template. So in our template, we have a subject, we have a full name, we have an email, and we have a message. So these are the template params we need to pass to our template. So the first thing we need to pass is the full name. So full name will be just full name. And in JavaScript, if you have this structure, you can just omit the second one and just make it tiny. So we can do that. Subject and the message. So these are the stuff we need to pass to our backend. Not the backend, but to email.js as the templates. And then after that, we can collapse these and continue now writing the asynchronous call we need to do. So we can use a try catch. First, let's deal with the try. The first thing we need to do is to use the fetch method. So the fetch, and then we give it the URL. Where is the URL? Go back to the documentation. This is the URL. Copy the URL. Go back to our code. The fetch, the first parameter for the fetch is the URL. So we pass in the URL. And then we need the options. So the options are the data, the headers, the method, all that, and the body. So the first thing we need to pass to say here is the which method. So the method, not like that, method, which is post. So how am I getting all these? You can just come here and say fetch API W3 schools, or maybe fetch API JavaScript, something like that. I don't know whether this one is well explained. You can go to free code camp and check how to use the fetch API. You can see I'm not explaining this one. I don't like that. So the fetch API receives, so we have the headers. So we have headers, we have what else do we have here? We have the headers, the fetch API. So you can just go through and see how all these are used so that you don't get stuck. So let me just go back. Okay, so we say the method is post. Then the headers, what headers do we want? We need to pass our headers as you can see. So everything is in the documentation. So these are not magical things that are happening. So we need to pass the content type, which is equals to application/JSON. And then finally we need to pass our data. So this is the data we created. So, and also the data need to be a string. So we can see, you can see what they are doing with their own data, but they are using jQuery and also Ajax, but in our case we're just going to use the fetch API. So you can even see the content type, and then the data, we stringify the data as a JSON. So not here. Then here below we can see the body called JSON.stringify, and then it stringifies our data. Then we can check if not response dot okay. So we have this helper to check if it's not if a response is not okay. Then we can draw a new error, failed to submit, try again later. So these is our helpers. What has happened? I don't know what. Okay, so if we don't have, if the response is not okay, we throw an error. And where will the error be catched? Because we have a try catch, the error will be caught using the catch. So we can continue, and then here we can return a status of true, and then a message of inquiry sub. So inquiry submitted successfully. Then we can go to our errors. So the first thing we need to do in the errors. So in the errors, let's log the error. Now here's where maybe you can use Sentry to grab the error. You can do whatever you want. You can write the error to maybe a database that maybe you can send the error to somewhere to be saved so that you can see it later on. You can use Sentry. But in my case, I'm just going to console.error, and then error, and then we pass in our error. Okay. Then we can create a message that would be sent. It will be failed to submit request. Try again data. And then we can check if the error is instance. So error instance of an error class. Then we change the message to be error.message. So maybe this one is a request timeout. So we got a request timeout from the fetch which was thrown. And then since the request timeout is an instance of the error class, we want to return to the user that this error is because of timing out. So the next one is maybe you don't have internet connection. So we need to tell the user that. So the thing we do is to check if the error is an instance of the error class, then we can change our message. And then finally we can return a status of false. And then the message should be message not a message like that, but msg. So that's our function, and it has been a very long function, but I hope I was able to explain. But we will test on the next step. Let's go ahead and start testing the function. So we need something else. So you saw the loading indicator that was showing here. So we can just create that. Somewhere here we can say is loading set is loading is equals to use state, then will be false. And then we can go below to our button. This one is just chakra based. So you can say loading. So loading you can say is loading. So this one is chakra based. So if you're using something like pure HTML, pure CSS, then you'd have our spinner. Maybe you can come here and say CSS loaders. Let me just show you. Get a CSS loader. Yeah, we can maybe copy this one. Then here you can come and render it and then say is loading, show the loading indicator or whatever can be done. So using chakra, this one is a little bit easier. Okay, so you're not going to do all these. So the first thing we'll do is to set the loading indicator to true. Then call user response, then we can await, send email. It is directly imported, and then pass it with our data, and then change this one to an asynchronous function. And then immediately after we set is loading to false, so that this one, the response has already come back. So we said that it is loading to false. Let me just do like this. And then we can check for success. So to check for success, we can say if res.status, you remember I said my res.status can have two. So let me just finish. So what did we say? We said that our send email function can only return either two. So it's either returning a status of true or false and then a message. So we are very confident here that we have a response. So you can even see TypeScript tells us that our response is an instance of the send mail response. Okay. The next thing I need to use is a toaster. I need a toaster. So we're just going to use this package called React Toastify. You can use the inbuilt toaster from Chakra UI, but I like these ones. So basically have to use them. So we can add this. So we can say pnpm add React Toastify, and then following the docs, we can go to our main.tsx. So this one is the main. We can come here and import these two, but we don't need the toast yet because this one is just wrapping our containers. And then we can render it somewhere here, the container. I'm just following the docs, so make sure you understand how to go through the docs. So we just import that, and then inside here, if we have the response is successful, we can call the toast from React Toastify. It's automatically imported. You can see. So if you don't have auto import, you can just install it. Auto import. You can see. I don't know. I don't even have it, but it's importing. I don't know what's. I don't know what's up, but I have an importer that basically imports TypeScript. I don't know what. So TypeScript React snippet. I think I have one. I think I have these. Okay, I know, but you can just install that and then you'll be good to go. So how do you use it? You can see this one is just saying toast, but in my case, I want to toast a success with the rest dot message. After it is successful, I need to reset the fields. So here you can also do something else. Maybe you don't want someone sending a notification twice, but let's not go through that. Or maybe you want to prevent spamming or something, but I'll leave that to you guys to finish up. So I want to reset the fields and then return. I don't want to continue. And then whenever we are here, this one means we toast an error. So just do toast dot error and then rest dot message. This one is for the errors. And then I hope everything is well connected to be tested. Let's test it and see. Okay, so a moment of faith. So let's do this. This one. This one is my message. So how have you? I hope you can see why I did remove the border on the inputs. You can see now how red it is, just showing well and nice. So how have you been? Cross our fingers and then let's test this one out. So the inquiry has been submitted successfully. Go to our email and then let's wait for the message or the email. Yes, hooray. So I hope you guys could remember I did add those emojis so that we can differentiate, and then we get this one. So new message, and then this is the subject, and then you can say hello admin, you got a new message from this blah 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 with this email, and then the message. So and then you can see the from name and the from email. So all these are added here. From name, and then reply to, you can do CCs, auto replies, attachments, and that's it guys. So that's how you use email.js into React. I hope you did enjoy this tutorial, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends and leave a comment in the comment section. And also this one is where you can even deploy this one to a server. So you can deploy it to, let me just show you how we can deploy this one. So let me just deploy it real quick. So I've just logged into Vercel. So this one is Vercel. And then let's just deploy this one for fun. So you can just import this. So we call it send mail react. It's a Vite project. And then deploy it. Make sure you have pushed your code to GitHub. Make sure you fork with the repository that we shared so that we can try and see whether it will be deployed. So it's as easy as 1, 2, 3 to deploy to Vercel. So make sure you fork the repository. Just show you. Make sure you did fork. And then clone the single branch, then create your own branch, and then go to Vercel, create an account. So go to Vercel and create an account. So our project has just been deployed. Very nice, very nice. You guys, we can go and test it out. Can continue to the dashboard. I just deployed this one. And there is our project. So I think this one was using some different variables, but this is how you actually deploy your project, and the project is live, guys. So this one is live. Make sure to follow along. Make sure to follow the GitHub account, and then I'll see you guys later. Thank you.